Hey there, I'm Amy from thecrazycraftlady.com. Welcome to my YouTube channel. Today we're talking all about carrots, and not like an eat your vegetables sort of way, although that's important too. If my kids are watching, eat your vegetables. But we're going to talk about carrot crafts, specifically Dollar Tree carrots. So Dollar Tree for a couple of years now has had these little twine wrapped carrots. So it's orange twine, super cute, super rustic looking. Confession, I ordered a case of these last year thinking, oh, I'm going to make a ton of carrot crafts. And then the box of, I don't know how many, it was like 100 carrots, sat in my craft closet for almost an entire year. So I'm finally getting around to using them up. But Dollar Tree usually has two sizes. So they've got the bigger size in a 4-pack, and then they also have the smaller size in the 6-pack. And we're going to use both of them. Mostly these, just because I had like 100 in my craft stash that I wanted to use up. But we're also going to use some of the miniature ones as well. See how many crafts I can come up with. Let's get making. So first thing, you'll want to grab one of these little tag door hangers from Dollar Tree. This was a Christmas one left over, but they usually have them like all different seasons. It's like the same essential shape, and then they just stick a different piece of paper, like printed paper on it. And then you just want to kind of distress it with some white chalk paint or white acrylic craft paint, whatever. And then I also have this like wooden craft square from the craft aisle at Dollar Tree. So just take a dry brush of white paint and brush up and down or back and forth, whatever direction you like. I'm just trying to make kind of a wood grain effect here. So just like a very, very dry brush, you can blot it off on like a piece of scrap cardboard and then brush back and forth in the same direction. And you only need to cover about the top third of this tag because the bottom part is going to be covered up. So just paint as much or as little paint on that tag as you want, and then repeat the same thing on the wooden craft square. Set those aside to dry, and then once the paint is dried, you want to use some drop cloth first. So yes, we're going to use burlap, but burlap is see-through, so I wanted to put drop cloth, which I always keep like scraps of drop cloth fabric in my craft stash, but you could use just like a plain neutral color fabric. And you want to create a bit of a pouch, so wrap it around that little tag and then flip it over and hot glue it in the back to secure it, but you want to leave a little space so that you can stick things into that little pouch. So I'm going to hot glue both sides there and then flip it over, and you'll be able to see there's a little space, so just a little space so there's a pouch. Then when you hot glue on the back, the bottom part, you can make that nice and tight because that's going to be the bottom of the pouch. You don't want things falling out. And then when I folded it over, there was a bunch of excess fabric and it seemed very bulky. So I just very roughly cut away some of that excess fabric and then folded everything in and hot glued it generously. You want to make sure there's hot glue between like all layers of the fabric. And then time for burlap. So you could just use burlap scraps, but I'm using this really wide burlap ribbon. And I'll just use 2, I guess, layers of it to cover the drop cloth completely. You could take regular burlap and like fold it in half or do whatever, but just secure it in the back with hot glue, and those silicone fingertip protectors are a lifesaver, especially when hot gluing burlap, because all those holes and all that hot glue poking through, you're gonna burn yourself. If you don't have a silicone fingertip protector, I will often on stuff like this just use the end of a pair of scissors to press down. But then it's time to add a little sign. So I cut the words bunny bait out of black vinyl. I just made it in Cricut Design Space. The font here is DJ Juicy. I just thought it was a fun, whimsical font. If you don't have a Cricut, you could just like paint the words on. I think like the more rustic and messy it is, like the nicer it looks. So I really liked this font because it was just kind of whimsical and fun. But just transfer that over with transfer tape. And then I embellished with like my go-to wooden half balls. I buy them in bulk on Amazon and I use them in like all sorts of projects. So just like dry fit them, lay them down like at whatever spacing or interval you want. And then I just keep a jar of Gorilla Wood Glue in my craft supplies. So I can use like a grubby old paintbrush to add a dab of glue to the back of each wooden half ball, and then they secure in place. And this Gorilla wood glue dries pretty quick. So you're not waiting for, overnight or whatever for everything to dry. And then set that in place on the little burlap pouch and use 4 dabs of hot glue to secure that in place on the front of the pouch. Then it's time to fill the little pouch up with moss, reindeer moss from Dollar Tree, which, I mean, no matter which way you slice it, it's going to be a mess. I tried to like dump it directly from the bag into the pouch, and it did not work as well as I had anticipated. But just kind of stuff some moss in there and then grab some of those 4 packs of the larger twine carrots from Dollar Tree and just kind of stuff them in there. You just kind of want them to be at like different angles and different heights with like the moss poking through. So for this size one, I thought 5 carrots looked about right. Stick with an odd number. And then I just ran a piece of burlap ribbon through that hole on the hanger and tied it in a knot so I'd have a hanger for it. And then I finished it off with a little black and white check ribbon or bow. So I just took some 1-inch ribbon, formed 2 little loops, and then do crisscross. Ironically, this is like when you're learning to tie your shoes, it's called the bunny ears method. So I guess pun intended there. So just make the little loops, tug them until the loops are the size that you want them, and then trim the tail ends of the bow at a 45-degree angle. And then I just hot glued that right in place, right over that hole where the door hanger, where the ribbon meets the door hanger. But that's it, a cute little door hanger craft. Super fun and whimsical. All right, reverse canvas crafts. I've been a big fan of these for quite a while. So the premise is simple. You just take a stretched canvas. These came from Dollar Tree. And then you use like a pen blade or a razor blade or some sort of blade to cut the canvas off of that wooden frame that it's stretched over. And then you save that canvas to place back on the back side of the frame once you've stained the frame, and it becomes more like a picture frame look. So I completely removed that canvas, and then I pulled out my Americana gel stain in the color oak. I use it for a lot of projects, especially when I can't go outside and use real wood stain, because this stuff is water-based and it doesn't smell, so it's great for using in your craft room. But just give a quick coat on the outer and the inner edges and then the front surface of that little wooden frame. And then if there's any excess, just take a paper towel and wipe away any excess and let that dry, but it should dry pretty quickly. And then trim down that piece of canvas. So there's like a little ridge where it was stretched over that frame. So cut right inside that edge so that you have a piece of canvas that will fit nicely on the back of that wooden frame. And then I came in with my Cricut and I cut just the word carrot patch in cursive on some heat transfer vinyl. So I added that to the canvas. You could just as easily use like wooden letters or just black paint. I don't use my Cricut that often, but I thought it'd be fun to use it on this one. And then lay the wooden frame over that canvas. Apply hot glue all the way around the back of the wooden frame and then set it in place. So there you have a reverse canvas. And then time to add the carrots to the carrot patch. So I just cut the 4-pack of the large twine carrots from Dollar Tree at varying heights, so they'd be staggered. Kind of have to be careful because as you cut the carrots, the twine kind of starts to unravel from the carrots, revealing the white styrofoam underneath, so just be kind of careful there. But then once you have like all your carrots cut at your desired height, then you can hot glue them in place. Just a little bit of hot glue to the back of each carrot, goes pretty quickly. And then to cover up the white styrofoam that's exposed at the bottom of each carrot, I just used some of that extra orange twine and I kind of wrapped it into a bit of a spiral. Just kind of spiral it up there and then hot glue that right in place on the bottom of one of the carrots. It doesn't have to be perfect, but this way at least the white styrofoam isn't showing. And then as just a little bit of a finishing touch, I just grabbed some straw and kind of tucked that in between some of the carrots just to add like a little bit more, like make it look like they were growing out of the ground and there's, you know, straw on the ground at the farm. So that was my first reverse canvas. And then my second reverse canvas, I went with more of like a shiplap style. So I did the same thing where I cut canvas off the frame and stained it the exact same way. And then I just used some wooden craft sticks and some heavy duty craft scissors, or you could use miter shears or whatever. And then I cut them trying to make like a shiplap look. So you wanted them cut at different lengths and staggered. So just cut them all until you've completely filled inside that wooden frame. And then remove them and set them aside, but keep them in the same order so you can paint them white. So I just set them aside and then used plain white chalk paint to paint all of the cut wooden craft sticks. Once my white paint had dried, I then went and hot glued all of the craft sticks back in place and I had a little, you know, shiplap background. And then from there, I was super basic. I just placed 3 carrots in place. I just hot glued them right in place. The left and the right ones were at a bit of an angle. And then I just used more of that 1-inch black and white check ribbon to make a bow. So here's my cheater method, okay? Fold over one end, make a little loop, hot glue it in place, fold over the other end, make a little loop, hot glue that in place, and then pinch it in the center and use a shorter cut or length of ribbon to wrap around the middle and then tie it in the back with like a quick double knot and then trim whatever is that excess of that ribbon. That's kind of like a cheater way of making like a perfect little bow there. And then I just hot glued that right in place on the middle carrot, trimmed both tail ends of the ribbon at a 45-degree angle, and that was it. For this, I decided to use one of those little planter buckets. So in springtime, Dollar Tree always has all sorts of pots and planters, and I really like this little barrel looking thing. I didn't love the dark brown and black color of it, so I just used some plain white chalk paint. And I didn't even get like perfect full coverage, but I just did like a very messy, very sloppy, quick paint job with the white chalk paint all the way around the outside of the barrel. And then it was time to add the carrots. So more of the 4-pack of the large carrots. And I just hot glued them in place, but I wanted them 1 carrot on each seam, those little lines, so that like the faux textured wood grain would show between the carrots. So I just added a line of hot glue to the back of each carrot and placed them in place all the way around the outside of the barrel. Then when it was time to fill up my little centerpiece bucket there, I just added one of these little IKEA plants. IKEA sells these faux plants, and I've got like a half a dozen of them. I'm obsessed. They're perfect for everything. And then I just filled in some of the edges with a package of this straw, just so it looked a little bit fuller. And then I had a bag of speckled Easter eggs, like speckled foam eggs, that I just kind of popped in to make it look a little bit more Eastery, but that's totally optional, or you could use whatever type of faux plant or flowers that you like. All right, time to make a little garland. So for this, Dollar Tree in the springtime has these little seed starter cardboard pots that I love and I'm obsessed with. And so I pulled out my go-to white lilacs from Dollar Tree, pull the leaves up the stem closer to the flower, and then snip off 3 little flowers. Generously apply hot glue around like the leaves, and then just pop it right into the cardboard little pot. And they should stay in place. So you can make as many or as few of these as you want. I think I did 5 just to make a little bit of a garland. So just hot glue all those flowers in place. And then I very simply embellished each pot with some 3/8 inch black and white check ribbon. I just hot glued the ribbon around the pot, about 1/3 of the way down from the top edge. And then I used my bunny ears method to tie a bow. So just 1 loop, 2 loop, crisscross, and pull tight. And then you just kind of finagle it until the loops are the size that you want. And then you can cut your tail ends. So I just hot glued 1 little black and white check bow to the front of each little mini pot of flowers. And then it was time to string these up. So I used a hole puncher to punch a hole on either side of the pot, like right near the top. And then cut about an 18-inch piece of twine, also from Dollar Tree. Run it through that hole on one side of the pot, tie it in a double knot. Then wrap the twine around one of those twine carrots 2 times, tie it with a very simple knot in the back. You want to be able to slide it back and forth, and I'll show you that here in a second. But tie it with a very simple knot, and then loop the other end through the hole in another seed starting pot, and finish it off with a double knot. And then once you look at the 2 pots, you can say, oh, yep, I want to slide that carrot left or right a little bit so it's a little bit more centered. And then you can repeat that process as many times as you like to make a garland. All right, this is an upcycle Dollar Tree craft project. I had this pickle jar that I put in my craft stash for who knows what reason, and it paid off today. So I just took the lid off of it and I painted it white with white chalk paint. I think I did 3 coats total just to get complete coverage. But the nice thing about chalk paint is it dries very, very quickly. So you can do 3 coats, one right after the other with like 20, 30 minutes in between. Then grab a little bit of Spanish moss from Dollar Tree. You only need a tiny little bit. Hot glue it to that inside of the pickle jar lid. You could use like a salsa jar or like a large mason jar, really like any kind of leftover jar you like. Just the wider the better. But then once all that moss is in place, then it's time to add a couple of embellishments. So I just kind of tossed 3 little carrots into the jar. And it takes a little bit of finagling. And then Dollar Tree has these moss bunnies. They're in a 3-pack with the spring crafts. So I just hot glued a little bunny in. And then very carefully, this is kind of tricky, I very carefully just kind of twisted the jar onto the lid. I say that I twisted the jar onto the lid, not the lid onto the jar, right? Because it's going to be upside down. But here I had to redo it once just because I couldn't, the carrots weren't at the right angle. You want the bottom of the carrot to be by the bunny and then the tops to kind of angle outward. So give it a twist, give it a shake, do what you gotta do to get everything to lay the way it's supposed to. And then I just finished it off with a very, very simple ribbon around the base. Just some 3/8 inch black and white check ribbon that I use on practically everything, and then tied it with a simple bow. Okay, for this craft, Dollar Tree has these little mini gumball machines that are Easter theme, and I was like, these are way too cute to pass up. So the base I just painted with white chalk paint. Yes, I could have used spray paint, but I live in Minnesota, so spring crafting is usually done when it's like 20 degrees and snowing outside. And I don't have a space to safely spray paint in a heated area. So for these types of projects, I just use white chalk paint. It's fine, it's a bit more time consuming. I think I did 4 coats for complete coverage on this, no big deal. Then I just hot glued a little bit of Dollar Tree Spanish moss right into the bottom of the little gumball machine. I didn't even cover like the whole base because I knew that my carrots were going to kind of cover up 3 of the mini carrots. So these are the ones that come in the 6-pack, not the 4-pack, the miniature ones. Pop them in there and then twist the lid on. And then I thought it looked kind of bare, so I just embellished with a bit of jute rope from Dollar Tree. You don't need more than 1 package. I think I used like a fraction of a package of jute rope. And then kind of hot glue it all the way around and make sure that the seam is always in the back just so you have like a nicer finished look. But I think the jute rope kind of gives it more dimension and a little bit more detail without resorting once again to my black and white check ribbon, which I feel like is kind of starting to get overused at this point, so I apologize. Okay, Dollar Tree has these little plastic cloches. Am I saying that right? For like making little terrariums. So for this one, I took the base off and I painted it with white chalk paint. I didn't even do like the top platform part. I just did like around the edges. So it was 2 coats, let it dry, 20 to 30 minutes between each coat, super simple. And then I wanted to stagger all of the little carrots inside the little plastic cloche at different angles. So this is kind of similar to my reverse canvas project where I like layered all the carrots in a pumpkin patch. I cut all of the carrots at varying heights. I was careful not to let the orange twine completely unravel when I cut it. So I tried to like wrap the twine back around and cover as much of that white styrofoam as I possibly could before then hot gluing the carrot right onto the base of that plastic cloche. And just be cognizant that you don't cut them, that they're so tall that they don't fit in that lid. Then I took a wooden craft stick and my miter shears and I just cut 2 little pieces to make a little sign. So it's just supposed to look like, I even like offset it so it's kind of like at an angle. And then I just took like a Sharpie pen and I wrote carrot patch in all capital letters right on there. And I set it right in front of the carrots. I actually set it in there and I was like, oh, that looks a little too tall. So I just pulled out my miter shears and I trimmed off a little bit to make it a tiny bit shorter. And then I hot glued it right in place. But that's it, super cute, a little carrot patch under a glass dome. Okay, spring decorating and crafting would not be complete without a wreath, so I pulled out an egg-shaped wreath form from Dollar Tree and I got to work. I used this really wide burlap ribbon that I have. You could just use pieces of burlap, like strips of burlap or whatever. I just had this in my craft stash and I've had it for years, so I just wanted to use it up. So I just wrapped that all the way around the wreath form, and I used a fair amount because I wanted little intervals, like where the seams between the ribbon, I wanted them fairly close together, and you'll see why, because I'm using them to stick my little greenery in. And I am obsessed with these silicone finger protectors. They've been a lifesaver when I remember to use them. It's like, how do I forget to use them and then I still burn myself? Hot glue problems, right? So once that's covered in the burlap, then I got these. Okay, so these are not from Dollar Tree. Dollar Tree does sell faux boxwood, but my Dollar Tree store was out. So I went to Michael's and I found like 40% off spring mini boxwood. And I really love these because they're like green and white and I thought they were really cute. So just stick a little bit of hot glue on the end of each little piece of greenery. And then stick the end of the greenery into the little pocket that's formed between the layers of the burlap ribbon. So super duper easy. And I bought 3 sprigs of this because it was on sale, and I ended up using like 1.5, I think. So I'll keep the rest in my craft stash for other projects because I'm always using boxwood. But just keep repeating that process until the entire wreath form is covered with greenery. And then it's time to grab the iconic Dollar Tree carrots. They come in a couple different sizes. Last spring, I ordered a case of them on the website, so I just have a bunch in my craft stash. I used the smaller of the carrots. I think they come in a 6-pack, and I think the bigger ones come in a 4-pack, but don't quote me on that. But then I just kind of like haphazardly staggered carrots all around the wreath, and I just put a little dab of hot glue on the back of each carrot and then pressed them into the greenery, and they stayed put pretty well. And then for a finishing touch, I found this little hippity hoppity bunny sign at Dollar Tree, and I disassembled it because I just wanted the bunny. It had like a faux wood look. And then I kind of centered it, figured out where I wanted it to be, and then put a couple dabs of hot glue on either end of the bunny. And I found it best to get like the bunny to stick with hot glue to the carrots and not to the greenery, if that makes sense. But that's it, a cute little bunny carrot wreath for Easter. All right, my final craft project here. I know it's doesn't use the twine carrots like everything else, but I just couldn't resist. Also because I bought this bag of orange buttons back in the fall because I wanted to make a pumpkin craft, and surprise, surprise, didn't get around to making it. So now I'm making a carrot craft instead. So Dollar Tree has these little wooden plank mini signs. They're like little easels. So you can make little signs for seasonal decor. This is like really perfect for adding to tiered trays or little vignettes on bookshelves. But I really just eyeballed this one, which is, if you guys know me at all, I have control issues. So just eyeballing something, especially when I have a hot glue gun in my hand, does not happen very often. So I'm really proud of myself for getting out of my comfort zone on this one. But I just kind of eyeballed a carrot shape, and I hot glued all of my little buttons into place. And then once that was ready to go, it's time to add a carrot top. And this is like a half of a sprig from Walmart that I had left over from spring 3 years ago. Just whatever greenery you want. I think a fern is a really good choice, but whatever you want. So I just got little 3 little greenery creases and hot glued them in place to make the carrot top there. And then it would not be complete without adding some black and white check ribbons. So I used 3/8 inch black and white check ribbon, made 2 little loops, little bunny ear method there, formed my bow, pulled the tail ends until my bow ears were the size that I wanted them, and then trim the tail ends at 45 degrees. Always optional to very, 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 very carefully take a lighter and burn the ends of your ribbon just so they don't fray, especially on some of these like more silky ribbons, they fray a lot. And then just hot glue that bow into place. And then I wanted to go a little bit extra here, so I just wrapped a piece of that same ribbon right around the base of that easel, just so that it kind of like tied in with the bow at the top of the carrot. But there you have it. It's like a cute little easel sign for spring with a carrot on it. But But there you have it, my friends. That was a long one, a lot of talking for me. If you made it to the end, I do appreciate you crafting along and following along with me. If you have a favorite craft or if you make one of these yourselves, I would love to hear about it in the comments section below. Until next time, happy making.